Well, we saw How to Train Your Dragon Hidden World, not
Yes.
How to Train Your Dragon 3. I don't know why they didn't call it a 3. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the second one was called 2. This is as much of a 3 as a third movie could get. It's not like a spin-off, but they went with a subtitle for some reason. But so what we're going to do first is give our first impressions first. We haven't discussed it yet. And then if that's all y'all need, you can just... you can get lost.
Yep, you can take that info and just...
Take that info, decide if you want to see it or not.
This is Berk, son. It was the home of your grandparents and their grandparents before them. But out there, beyond the edge of the world, lies the home of the dragons. And I believe it's your destiny to one day find this hidden world.
So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it's good.
Yep.
Slaps.
Slaps. Sucker slaps. It slaps.
Yes. But it's weird. So this, I feel like, is the perfect example of the opposite of The Last Jedi. Where The Last Jedi was really controversial because it was basically one giant twist after another. And by the end of the movie, you didn't really know where do we go now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were people getting killed off. There were people whose motivations seemed to have completely changed. There were reveals that weren't reveals at all. This is exactly... Like, did this movie surprise you at any point? No. This is probably the least surprising movie I've ever seen. And I consider myself a huge fan of the first movie, and I think the second movie was a fantastic sequel.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie is also great, but the way I would like, I was thinking of this visualization earlier, and I was like, this is stupid, but it makes sense to me. So, the first movie is like a huge haymaker, but the guy's still standing. So the second movie, it's like an uppercut. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, he might go down, but it cut off before he goes down. The third movie is, oh, he's unconscious. Like, that was it. Because, like, the first movie has this tension with his father. Like, that's like the main conflict is, I figured out this thing I'm good at, and this isn't what you thought it was. Yep. Even though you're dedicated to protecting everyone because you're the chief from this thing, but it's like, it's not that. But I know I'm a little kid, and you're not going to listen to me. That was the whole, the center of the first movie. The second movie was extremely tragic. Like, there was just a whole lot of bad things happen in the second movie. With, like, a few good, like, there's a few revelations that are like, oh, hey, that's cool, and then just tragedy. Yeah. Just tragedy follows, and it's, like, overcoming that tragedy and, like, rising to the occasion. The third movie... It just kind of ends. It ends the whole series. The way I was thinking was like, this is an epilogue. This entire movie is an epilogue with a villain.
Yeah.
And the villain's good. I really liked the villain.
Yeah,
he was very charismatic. I loved the line delivery. I loved his the way he moved and emoted was really good and in stark contrast to some other characters in the movie.
But they didn't make the movie all about the villain. They made it about the story finally...
Like, just ending.
Coming to an end, The whole story. Not just, subplots within this movie. It was the overarching theme of all of the movies coming to an end. And they did a really good job, I think. Yeah, I think... Oh, man. Okay, so the big overall story... This movie wraps up perfectly, and it was very satisfying and gives you all of the closure you could ever ask for. And like all of the tears you could ever imagine.
I didn't actually cry at all.
Flowing out.
I cried a lot at the second movie, but it was because of, tragedy. But this movie, it was just like... Everything was wrapped up as good as you could ever ask for, and nothing was terribly challenging or unexpected. So I'm saying it's the opposite of The Last Jedi. I like The Last Jedi, and I liked this movie. But these are good... This is a good kind of, hot and cold comparison. Like, this is the yin and yang, because there are pros and cons to both.
Yin and yang.
I think...
Like,
I actually
that's not a spoiler, because it's in the trailers.
I have no idea what you're on about.
Well, because, like, the Night Furies, they're like yin and yang.
Oh, they are! Yeah, well, Night Fury and Light Fury.
Light Fury.
Ah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was thinking, I was like, this movie's entire plot could have been summed up in those little text things that say, where are they now? Like, at the end of the second movie, this whole movie's plot could have been, like, highlight one character, bloop,
yeah,
bloop, move on to the next one. That's the whole movie. Nothing really crazy happens. Yeah. Without getting into spoilers, I think it would be hard to spoil, because, like, you could lay out the entire, just beat by beat plot, and people would be like, yeah, I could have seen that happening. I probably knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. Which isn't a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing.
It was very satisfying.
It was satisfying. The problem is, okay, let's get my document up. Let's get into the problems. Don't read it.
Okay.
So, okay, we talked about the villain.
Yeah.
I talked about how I liked his charisma. I liked the performance. I liked the way he was designed.
Yeah.
He kind of, he was a very grim kind of, he wasn't, like, super dark, and he had a sense of humor.
And he enjoys what he enjoys, which is the hunt.
Yes. And, God, the design of his, like, dragon henchmen, it was, like, all of the design work that they had done for all of the other dragons, like, there were no new dragons in this movie, save for those, and they're the most perfectly designed, like, as far as, like, characteristics and, like, the way they emoted, like, animals and, like, the specific coding they had with them, because they were, like, serpent dragons with big tusks, and their, like, attitude was, God, it was so good. Like, the first...
Scorpion.
Yeah, oh, man, it was, like, every kind of foreboding animal. Yeah. Like, if you see it's on the ground, it's like, eh.
Yeah.
It was evil. All that combined. Like, they had venom. They, like, puked up this acid. Mm-hmm. Like... perfect villain dragons. But, like, the second movie, one of the selling points was, like, we've more than doubled the amount of designs for new dragons. And, like, that second movie was just like, here's a new dragon, here's a new dragon. It was all these new designs, and I forgot most of them.
Yes.
Like, in this movie, most of the dragons that are still here in the spotlight were carryovers from the first movie. Because those were good and simple, and they were kind of cartoony. These dragons that the villain has are not cartoony. They look like something out of Monster Hunter. Yeah. And that's huge praise for me, because Monster Hunter does fantastic creature design, especially in the way that they get animalistic mannerisms in the way they, like, move and act and, like, behave around different things. Like, there was, like, a whole interview with the reptile designer for Monster Hunter, and he was talking about, the way toads act is, like, all this stuff. The way snakes act is all this stuff. I was like, oh, that's really cool. There's a lot of that in How to Train Your Dragon 3, and it made me want to play Monster Hunter, ironically enough, because you're the bad guys, you be the bad guys in the How to Train Your Dragon universe. But, anyway, the villain was good. He was good on camera. He was very good on camera. I don't care about him, though. I don't have any, like, he had no backstory. They kind of hint at a backstory of he also kind of looked up to Stoic, which is Hiccup's father. But there wasn't much there. Like, the most they give that is, he's like, what would your father think of you? And it's like, did you not see the second movie?
Yeah. Yeah, you obviously didn't.
There's another scene, something kind of spoilery happens. But he's, like, standing tall and, like, looking into the distance with Stoic's statue behind him. And I'm like, okay, they might be going somewhere, but there needs to be a lot more, or this is kind of a waste. And it turns out it was kind of a waste. The other villains that he kind of talks to, that are, like, the nation leaders that are trying to conquer the territory that the Vikings are in.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, this could be going into some world building. It doesn't. It looks like you're going to get world building with all, like, those generals, I guess they were, conquerors. And you kind of get to see some of the other locations, but there's a lot of smoke. And it kind of, you get the feeling that they're like, we don't want to design these entirely new, like, architectures and buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you can tell that world building is not the concern when the movie is just ending.
Yeah.
The movie isn't ending, so we're not going to start building things out. The world building you get is the hidden world.
Right.
And that, I'm not going to go into specifics, but I was pleasantly surprised that the ending wasn't a twist. and I was expecting the ending to be some kind of twist, and Hiccup hints at that early in the movie, and that doesn't happen, and I was glad. I was glad that he was kind of, in a way, he was realizing his father's vision, just going a different route, going a better route, but still getting the same end result. And, like, Stoic was still kind of right in the end about it.
Yeah, okay. Kind of spoiler. I'd like to mention something. Like,
okay.
I was, in the movie, he's talking...
Put a little flash up.
Yeah, in the movie, he's talking about how he wants to take the whole town and the dragons and find someplace where they can be together.
Hiccup, yeah.
Without being,
harassed by everyone else.
And so he talks about
He's like, we'll all move to the hidden world.
Yeah, well, we will all move to the hidden world, and then...
That was what I was worried about. I was like, I hope it doesn't go there.
So he takes the entire town, he just pulls them up and takes them on this journey, and
But then they don't want to go with him. They kind of find a place. They're like, we like it here. We love it here.
And also, the hidden world isn't somewhere where the humans could live.
It's not. It's just a place for dragons.
It's just a place for dragons. There's, like, all kinds of stalagmites and
both stalactites,
stalagmite and stalactites, and there's no way that humans are going to be able to survive there because they can't fly.
Yeah, and just the thing where it's like, even though Hiccup is the chief and Night Fury is the alpha, and these like heads of these species, like, even though they're on the same page, they're not going to get everyone else on the same page.
Right.
And that's kind of, that's this level story. The level of the story up here is the boy and his dog coming of age story finally comes to an end. Mm-hmm. And then the thing up here, which is like the symbolic, the metaphorical thing, is like, sometimes you gotta let people go live their lives apart from you. Mm-hmm. And I loved how the ending, I'll get all the spoilers right here.
Yeah.
The ending, I like how it's Hiccup gets married, has a family. The Toothless and, did they ever name her? The Light Fury. They didn't name her. Well, because she wasn't like anyone's dragon. Did they? I don't think she ever had a name. They end up being like the protectors of the mouth of the hidden world, like the waterfall where you get in there. And they have their kids. In the very end of the movie is them like meeting to be like, is this still here? Yeah, show their kids. And you see the baby dragons and everything, and they interact. But you don't get the feeling that they're reconnecting and going to be, going
together
into battle
forever again.
Yeah.
It's just, we're meeting up.
Yeah, you're visiting your friend after a few years. And
for a couple hours, and then you have to go back. Yeah, you
have to go back to your real life, where you're needed most. That was excellent. I love how it went there, because at the end of the first movie, you kind of get the feeling... Okay, here's a thing that's really good. These movies did very, very well.
I'm getting emotional right now. I'm sorry.
Each individual movie... We're out of spoilers now. We'll drop the spoilers now. Yeah. Because this isn't spoilery. Each individual movie...
to the end or whatever.
Yes. Each individual movie not only has its own basic plot that it starts and finishes, and has its own character arcs for those characters, but it has a mythological trope that it can start and finish. Where in the first movie, the Night Fury is Hiccup's chaotic potential that he hasn't realized because he's a boy. Mm-hmm. And his father is protective. He doesn't like the chaos. He's like, I'm order. I don't want you bringing in your chaos, your freaking hormones. You're going nuts. Going out, staying out late. I don't know what you're up to. So he captures the Night Fury, and Toothless's name is like works within this, because it's like he's not toothless. He has like the potential to be the most deadly thing alive, but he can also retract it. He can put the teeth away and be like a little cat.
Or a little doggy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So like he's chaotic potential, and it's like Hiccup is taming that potential, and that's a metaphor for, going through puberty or whatever. Where it's like, everything's weird and freaky and dangerous, and I have to get control of everything.
Yeah.
But, it's not, the answer is not shield off everything. Then the second movie has its own storyline where it's like he's reconnecting with his lost mother, and he's like, in order for him to become a leader, he has to reconnect with that mother that he missed out on. Mm-hmm. So it's like her becoming his, like her being reestablished as his matriarch helps balance him and make him able to act as the chief. Because before it was like, well, I'm the strongest. I am the alpha of my tribe because I have the strongest dragon, meaning he has the most potential.
Yeah.
That makes me the leader, and it's like, it's not what makes you the leader.
Yeah.
Now you have to learn from your mother, how to be calm, how to talk to people, how to inspire people.
Yeah.
Yes, compassionate, exactly. Like, how to, like, delegate, how to be a team. That was really good. And this one is, how to move on from being a kid. So, like, this thing that drove you before, this thing that you used to your advantage, you don't need it anymore. Now you need to be... I said spoilers were over. Not just the chief, but, the head of a household. You don't have to be, the rowdy Han Solo character anymore. You kind of need to be at home now. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised that they actually committed to that and stuck with that. Mm-hmm. So they're all good individual movies, but the overarching storyline also works extremely well, and it's in ways that are like bittersweet. Like they didn't shy away from anything. Mm-hmm. Like they had the tragedy, but then for the third movie they don't try to have a twist or a tragedy or go darker, because they're like, it's not what the story needs now.
Yeah.
Now the story needs to end and needs to be like, this period is over. You can't change the world. Your family needs you. Like, you're done being the superhero.
The adventurer.
Yeah, you're done adventuring. Let someone else take your place. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to make all this work. You're going to put everyone else in jeopardy by trying to make the impossible happen. And a lot of people don't want you to win. Like they don't like the dragons. They don't want you to, create a new world order dominated by dragon riders. But your significant other needs you, and your people need you, and your friend, your teammate, your partner in crime.
He doesn't need you anymore.
His people need him more than either of you need each other. So, yeah, it was awesome. Mm-hmm. It was great. However, let's get into the cons. This movie has too many sidekicks, and I don't like any of them. Like, Snotlout is just annoying. The whole subplot where he's trying to impress Hiccup's mom, annoying, useless, flat humor.
Useful at all.
Yeah, it didn't even end in a satisfying way. At no point was it funny.
The twins were annoying.
The twins were very annoying, and the only part that worked was when she was supposed to be annoying.
Yeah.
In order to escape the prison. That was the only time it was any good. Kristen Wiig can do a really cringy, annoying voice.
Yeah.
Astrid was miscast in the first movie. We didn't know she was going to be a terrible voice actor at that time. She was America Ferrera. She was young, unproven. She was a popular name. I'm glad they didn't recast her, because that's always very annoying. Mm-hmm. I hate how people think you can recast voice actors just as easy. I hate how they think that's easier and more okay than recasting live action roles. I don't think it's any different, because you notice it.
Yeah.
It's very important to keep the same cast. And unfortunately, they're terrible actresses. Astrid is the most wooden, flat voice actor I think I've ever heard. And it was made worse by the fact that she was clearly being animated to be more expressive, but the voice didn't match it at all. No. I found it extremely distracting. Her voice never went up or down. She was very monotone. When she was trying to, get to Hiccup, it was like, you sound like you're half asleep. Do you actually care about what's going on? And then Jay Baruchel, where this is, his passion project. This is, the only thing he still wants to do. Mm-hmm. He's, clearly doing his best as Hiccup, even though he's always been kind of a strange voice. That was kind of the point, and it still works. And Jay Baruchel is better when he's not trying to sound like a little kid. If he's just doing his normal voice, he's clearly going to be able to do a better job. So older Hiccup is always has a better line delivery than younger Hiccup. Gerard Butler was fantastic as Stoic in all of the flashbacks. And I like how, kind of a side thing, but I liked how Stoic's legacy wasn't dumped on, and we didn't want to recontextualize Stoic as this hateful, masculine father figure, because he never was that. Mm-hmm. He had clear good reasons for the conflict in the first movie, clear good reasons for any conflict in the second movie, and it was his goal that is achieved at the end of the trilogy, just in a better way. Just Hiccup was able to do it better than he was. That was good. But Gerard Butler, tons of emotional gravitas in his flashbacks. He did he's really good at this character. I think Gerard Butler is an amazing voice actor. Might be better as a voice actor than a live action actor. But God, I don't know if it's the sidekicks not getting a good enough script, or the fact that I just don't think any of them were ever really that great of voice actors to begin with. I don't think of Jonah Hill when I think of voice acting. And they were cast early in How to Train Your Dragon 1, because it was kind of that popular group of people you could slap on the title when the first one came around, Yeah. Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Fishlegs. What is he even doing anymore? He's still not a good voice actor. T.J. Miller, I despise his voice. I've never liked it. A lot of people think it's entertaining. But him as the male twin, he does a fine job, but his script is kind of frustrating and kind of flat. The comic relief isn't fantastic in this one. Kristen Wiig's character works when she needs to be extremely annoying, because she was extremely annoying and she was doing a very annoying voice.
Yes.
Kit Harington's character, he did a fine job, but it's just Kit Harington doing Kit Harington. And his character has straight up nothing to do. He was the big muscly guy who was one of the dragon hunters in the second movie. He has nothing to do in this movie, but he's just in it constantly. He's just there to be part of the side plot with Snotlout having the hots for Hiccup's mom. That was very poorly done. Mm-hmm. Craig Ferguson's character has one running joke in the whole movie, and it pays off, and it did its job, and it was good. And I think even Craig Ferguson phoning it in, which I think he was, even Craig Ferguson phoning it in is extremely entertaining and likable. He's just funny because Craig Ferguson's a really funny guy. But I still think that character was more entertaining in the first two movies. The villain, great line delivery. Yeah. Good script for him. His laugh, his very dismissive laugh, was very fitting. I actually don't know the actor. I'd have to look that up. But I didn't need to know the actor. He did a really good job.
Yeah, he did good. Whoever he was.
Mm-hmm. Hiccup's mom. She's a fantastic voice actress and actress. But her performance is so much more involved in the second movie, because the movie is so much more about her, and she is the opposite to Stoic. Stoic, whose name is literally Stoic. She's, very emotional and compassionate and passionate. So her voice performance was really good in the second movie. There's not a lot of that in the third one. I guess it wasn't that necessary. Most of what she does is she's kind of a voice of guidance a couple times, but those aren't very, intense situations when she has to be. So yeah, not everything's perfect. I think some of the character animation was a little awkward this time, and I think that was highlighted by the voice acting being a bit wooden, save for Hiccup, Stoic, and the villain. Like I said, when the villain's on screen, the way he's moving around and has the swagger is fantastic. But when you've got Snotlout doing his thing, it's like, I don't like him. Yeah, I wish there was just less of him. And I get that that's kind of the point, but unfortunately you're being successful in all the wrong ways.
Yep.
You know what's a shame is I don't think any of the side characters have changed a bit since the first movie. They've not grown at all. They just grew facial hair. Save for the one who can't grow facial hair, and that's one of the jokes. And this movie's facial hair is just on another level. Like, the in the flashback, Stoic's beard when he's younger Stoic, and it's just like shiny and like auburn and like braided, and it's like, wow, that's a nice beard. And then you get like Hiccup's stubble on the close-up shots. It's just like, CG is amazing now. Craig Ferguson's character, I can never remember his name, but all like the little mechanical stuff, like with their really like medieval looking cyborg stuff.
Yeah.
All those little details and like the way the metal was kind of rusted in places. All the close-ups.
They have really good patina on everything.
What's that?
Patina is like on leather when it's been like used and like
yes,
dirtied up and stuff.
They got the Viking aesthetic really well.
Yeah.
This movie's textures are extremely gritty to go along with the sort of exaggerated character design. Like the Toothless's like hard hide compared to the Light Fury, which almost looks like snow at times, the way it kind of reflects and glistens. Yeah, so many nice textures. The lighting looks incredible the whole time. And going on to the visuals, something I liked from the first two movies is this thing that I don't know if it's called this, but it's what I've been calling it, is hyperreality for cinematography. Where it's like, I know it's CG, I know it's a cartoon, but there's these shots they do, especially during flight scenes, that look like they're imitating like like someone doing handheld shots from like a helicopter, and like the way the depth of field is, like you'll see when they're flying over that waterfall, and the way it's kind of struggling to maintain focus, and it's like a little shaky because they're close to a waterfall. I love that stuff. Details, yeah, it looks so cool. And I loved it in the first flight scene from the first movie, which is still the best scene in the whole series. Where it's like, when we're far away, the shots are stable. But when we're trying to follow them, it's a little shaky and it's losing them a couple times because it's all fast and everything. I wish there was more of that in this one. This one feels a lot more like a Marvel movie where everything's very clear and you can follow the action very well. I'm not saying I miss shaky cam, because I really don't. But I miss when shaky cam was used properly. And there's points in this movie where it is. I wish there was maybe a little bit more of it. Seems almost a little too perfect in how it tracks most of the time. Especially since that was one of my favorite elements from the earlier movies. Oh, what'd you think of the music? Interesting, right?
Yeah, I feel like I almost didn't notice it.
That's weird for a How to Train Your Dragon movie.
Like, at the very end, I could kind of, like, hum along to the credit music, because I think that might have been some carryover melodies from previous movies.
Yes, it was the theme from the whole series, and I think that's the first time I noticed it.
Yeah, same.
There was a part early in the movie where there's a piano version of it that's very much in the background. It's not used in the extremely, like, over-the-top epic fashion that it was being used before. Like, John Powell was doing the DreamWorks version of a Hans Zimmer score for the first two movies, where it was like these theme songs that were meant to boom over the amazing visuals that were happening. I'll say dazzling visuals, because, you know, the first flight scene in particular for the first movie is basically just there for the animation team and the score team to go crazy while we see Hiccup trying to learn how to fly Toothless.
Yeah.
And Toothless learning how to fly again because he's fixed his wing, his tail wing. Which is an amazing scene. Like, that's such a great climax of that struggle.
Makes me want to watch it.
Yes.
The whole movie.
And that music stuck with me after the first time I saw it. That I went home and looked it up on YouTube, and it already had like close to 1 million views. That song got people so well. I'm pretty sure it's called First Flight. I didn't notice the movie's music until the credits for this one, which I think is disappointing because it was one of my favorite parts of this whole franchise. There's a lot of things I like about it, but the music, like that, there's a couple songs. It's First Flight, and when he's trying to communicate with him. So they start drawing, and then Toothless picks it up and tries to draw something too. The music in that scene is just like, oh, it's so good. Like, it it carries, it gives everything so much more emotional impact. And I didn't even catch it in that callback to that scene in the third movie. I didn't notice the music. It actually took me a second to realize what was happening. So I was like, oh yeah, that thing, that amazing scene from the first movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. Unfortunately, kind of flew under the radar. Flew. Let's see, what else we got? Yeah, no, I think we got everything.
Okay.
That was kind of all my thoughts. I think it's a good movie.
Yes.
It's not surprising, but it's very satisfying.
It's very satisfying.
And everything but the comic relief and the side characters and side plots is very well done. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad it got so much closure, because that doesn't happen anymore. Especially not with animated films. And what's funny is that you feel like this is what it was building to from the beginning now.
Right.
Even though you didn't know that. There's no way you could have known.
You feel like this was a well-structured story that all got written by the same people at the same time.
Even though there's no way. Even though there was no way.
Yeah, there's no way that happened.
But it's like the fact that it feels that way and it worked out that way is very impressive. But yeah, when we're still wondering what's going to happen with episode 9, we haven't seen the trailer, and I don't know where it could go. This is a nice change of pace to have what feels like a perfect ending to a perfect trilogy. Mm-hmm. Even if there's kind of The Hobbit feeling, where it's like the first 2 movies were the story, this is the epilogue.
Yeah.
Third movie doesn't feel like a finale. The second movie, Toothless becoming the alpha, is the finale. Mm-hmm. Of the series, and this is the epilogue. This is, what does that mean? This is Hiccup's a chief, Toothless is an alpha. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Like I said, it could have been summed up in those little short summaries at the end of the second movie. But it's very pretty, and it's very enjoyable, and it's almost entirely worth the last 2 minutes of the movie. Yeah. Like, the last 2 minutes were just
beautiful.
God, they were awesome. So yeah, it slaps. It's a good movie. I think if you like the first 2 movies, you got to see this one.
Mm-hmm. Punch to the heart. That's what it is.
It's definitely not a place to start, because even though it does, even though I think because of the villain and the conflict, it works as a standalone story, I'd recommend watching the first 2 movies first. Yes. Because they're fantastic.
Yeah,
and this movie is better, way better with them. So yeah. We'll see y'all next time. Oreo Baby Dragon is the best.
Yes.